And good afternoon and welcome everyone. Welcome to Torah L'chaim with your host, me, Rabbi Anibal. Welcome, welcome, welcome Lori, welcome Rocky from Costa Rica. Good weather there? Let us know. Let us know, Rocky. Pretty sure you're probably studying Torah with a piña colada next to you. Brenda, welcome. Julia, Janet. Who else? Brenda, you're having cappuccino. I'm having... I know the cup looks like a little big, but it's a double espresso. So a little bit of milk today. I just feel like that. Shelly Chochinov, welcome to the class. Welcome. It's hot. Costa Rica. I don't know. Let's see. I will check. What is the name of the place? Costa Rica is Playa Longusta. Costa Rica. Oh, 32 degrees Celsius. Probably our American friends can make the conversion, but it's 32 degrees Celsius. Oh, very nice, Rocky. Very nice. Okay, good for you. We're going to study today a little bit of this week's Parsha Mishpatim, but it's also a special Shabbat. It's called Shekalim. The Parsha Shekalim should be read always the Shabbat before or the Shabbat of Rosh Chodesh Adar, if Rosh Chodesh is on Shabbat. Why is that? Because I always like to remind people and to study a little bit about this, the commandment of giving the half shekel to back in the days to the temple. The closest thing that we have in these days to the half shekel is membership for a synagogue, because it was not about these big donations that you will give once in a while for capital funds or big project. This was like a regular fixed amount for everyone that should be brought every year to the temple. So the closest thing that we have in the way we operate synagogues in these days is the membership. I may talk a little bit more about that on Saturday, on Shabbat. I think I have a few ideas for a sermon, but it's very important to understand that there were two different concepts for donations back in the day. Okay, one was the fixed donation, and the other one was the bring as much as you can donation. That concept is going to come into next week's Parsha. There's Parsha Teruma. Unfortunately, I'm not going to be teaching that class because, remember, we are going to take 2 weeks hiatus for Torah L'chaim. So, yeah. Welcome, David Grossman. Welcome to the class. Yeah, and so, yeah, we are going to study a little bit about the shekel. And it's interesting because I remember I taught this about 2 years ago. And it's based on the value of silver. So I went back through my notes last time I taught this concept, and the price of silver tripled or more than tripled. So what used to be a small donation that people have to bring to the synagogue, because a variation of the donation of the shekel still exists in these days. So what used to be something like $20-25 is close to $90 now. This is beyond inflation. It's just because it's related to the price of silver. Okay, the shekel, the shekalim were silver, which is interesting because shekel means weight, right? And which is very, how you say it? It's very similar to what we have in Argentina, that is the peso. Peso in Spanish, so peso in English is weight as well. So peso, weight, shekel is the same. So I guess because it used to be the weight of the metal, against the currency. So that's why in Argentina, in many countries they speak Spanish, the currency is called peso. Okay. Now in Israel they call it the new shekel, but shekel means peso, also the weight. Very interesting. Welcome, Holly Mandelkorn. Welcome to the class. So I'm going to give one more minute. Maybe somebody else would like to join the class today, and we are going to dive into this week's Parsha. And remember also that I'm going to mention a little bit about Purim, because unfortunately, again, I won't have the opportunity to teach you about the holiday before the holiday happened, but I didn't want to leave the opportunity to teach you a little bit about Parsha Mishpatim, that I think that is very important as well, okay? So if you want to study more about Purim, I'm pretty sure you can go to our archive, or maybe I can pre-program in advance for the Torah L'chaim to, maybe I will do that. It's going to be an unmonitored chat during Torah L'chaim, and I can easily stream the class that I taught last year, so you can review that one as well. Maybe I will do that so you won't have a no Torah L'chaim for the next 2 weeks. Shelly Chochinov, let's see what you say here. If I remember correctly, there is a footnote regarding this topic in a Red Chaim Chumash. Yeah, it talks about half silver dollar. That's one tradition only, Shelly. And for what I studied, this giving as a donation during the time of Adar, the month of Adar, giving as a donation the amount, the half currency of whatever you are, is the minimum that you are required to give. The best way of doing it is to calculate how much is actually a half shekel. And then you have to give that amount 3 times, and we are going to see why in a minute. Okay. Before we do that, I want to study with you a little bit about this week's Parsha. And I wanted to say something that is extremely important. I was talking about this with a group of kids at Gray Academy because I was invited to their Shabbaton. And we studied this Parsha, the Parshat Mishpatim, and I presented to them how the last week's Parsha and this week's Parsha are connected, or should be connected. That is a more precise term. How so? Last week's Parsha was about the 10 Commandments, the most spiritual event in Jewish history, when God spoke to everyone. Because remember that all over the Torah, after Moses is presented, God communicated to the people of Israel through Moses. That's why the Torah will say it all the time, Vayedaber Adonai el Moshe leimor. And God spoke to Moses to say, or to tell. So basically, Moses was an intermediary between God and the Jewish people. So every time that God wanted to communicate a new mitzvah, a new commandment to the Israelites, God will call Moses to the Ohel Moed. It was the tent of the meeting. It was a part of the tabernacle. It was like a telephone booth. And God will tell Moses there what Moses is supposed to tell to the Jewish people. But last week's Parsha, what we read, the 10 Commandments, the Torah explicitly said that the revelation for those 10 commandments out of the 613, those 10 specifically, were communicated directly from God to the Jewish people. Welcome, Ariel Lee. Just saw your name in the chat. Okay, so we may think that the 10 Commandments are more important than the other mitzvot, which they are not. The rabbis, especially in the Talmud, they make it very clear that that's not the case, that every commandment, every mitzvah is equally important. Maybe the experience of that, right, was more intense, but the level of importance of the mitzvot, they are all the same. But the other thing is that there is the understanding that all the commandments should be as important as what was revealed on Sinai. So let me read this. This is the beginning of this week's Parsha, okay? It says, Ve'ele hamishpatim asher tasim lifneihem. Ve'ele. and these are the ruling you are to present to them. So after last week Parsha, 10 commandments, now this Parsha continues, and it says, and these are the rulings you are to present to them, you as Moses. Because remember, God changed gears, not talking directly to the Jewish people anymore. Now everything is going to be done through Moses. So listen to what Rashi says here, because this is the key to fully understand this week's Parsha in the right way. Rashi says, whenever it says these are, it introduces a new subject. Okay? Where, however, it says and these are, it adds something to the previous subject. Thus, and these are the rulings, means just as the four main commandments, the Aseret HaDibrot, the 10 commandments, in last week's Parsha were given at Sinai, so these civil laws were given at Sinai. So this is a continuation of last week's experience. So what happened is, after the 10 commandments, the people of Israel said to Moses, Moses, please ask God to stop. We cannot handle the intensity of this spiritual experience. So please let God talk to you, and then you talk to us. So this is technically a continuation of what happened last week. And so this is also something that it was given to the people of Israel right after the 10 commandments. And this is a very important thing, because the main topic of these commandments, the commandments that are presented in this week's Parsha, seems to be totally unrelated to whatever happened last week. Last week was all about, at least the first 5 commandments, about the way we should believe in God, you should not have other gods, and so forth, right? And now all the rules, all the mitzvot that they are going to present in Parsha Mishpatim seems to be something that has nothing to do with God. It's all about rules to regulate and to improve our relationship with other people. Okay? This is how we should live our lives here on earth. Nothing to do with spirituality. It's almost like we went from, last week with all the special effects. We went from fireworks to homework. Right? It's like two very different things. But Rashi said, no, they are not different at all. And that's why it starts with the word and. It's not that last week's all the spiritual laws were more important than the laws presented on this week's Parsha, that they talk about the relationship between people. They are both equally important. And this is very interesting, because sometimes we believe that strengthening our relationship with God is more important than that improving our relationship with others. The opposite is also true. Some people believe that all what matters is our relationship with other people. What we do for others, what we do for this world, and our relationship with God is not really important, right? And at this point, I cannot forget what I studied back in university times. What I'm saying, I don't know how many of you know, and if you don't know, you probably imagine it. I mean, by now it's not so difficult to guess. My background, my university background, is in computer science. So one of the things that you learn when you're learning coding, when you learn how to write code for the computer, are the operators or and the and. So or means that either one or the other have values or fields, one or the other operations have to be true, one or the other. If you have and, when you write code, means both have to be there or the command doesn't work. So every time I read and in the Torah, I go transported back to those days when I would study computers, and I said, if you don't have both, the thing doesn't work. So if the Torah said, revelation of the 10 commandments and all the civil laws of Mishpatim, it's not or means one or the other. It says and. So you need to fulfill both because they're both equally important for the success of the formula. The formula means the Torah. So for the Torah to be successful, we have to understand that both relationship with God and relationship with people are also important. Now, there is a third leg of this tripod that is going to be presented next week. And that is also very important because that is going to be terumah, which means the financial commitment. So you cannot have just a relationship with God or just a relationship with people. You also need to fulfill your financial commitments. And in this case, is talking about the temple, aka synagogue in these days, because we don't have a temple anymore. So it's a very important, it's the three leg. Relationship with God, relationship with people, and financial obligation with the synagogue is 1, 2, 3. Okay, we have a little bit of a taste of that with shekalim, which is the basic donation, but it's going to be expanded next week. Too bad we cannot talk about that because that's when we're going to be in hiatus, and I can't remember what I said last year about it. So even if I replay the class, it may be a different topic. Okay, so I wanted to present to you a little bit of these commandments of Mishpatim, and you will see how it seems to imply that there is nothing spiritual about it, but that's why we have to remember that they are connected to last week's revelation. Okay, it's something that we have to do. Now, listen to this. Mitzvah, commandment presented in this week's parsha. It says, if someone removes the cover from a cistern or digs one and fails to cover it, and an ox or donkey falls in, the owner of the cistern must make good the loss by compensating the animal's owner. But the dead animal will be his. In other words, will be his problem to clean up as well. Right? So, if you read this, seems to be that there is nothing spiritual about it. This is like, to a certain point, you will think that it's common sense. It's common sense that if you dig a hole and an animal gets hurt, it's your responsibility. Then of course it will continue, and if the damage goes to a human being, also there are consequences to you. You being the one who dug the cistern. It's a very interesting thing. Now, in this day and age, we can see how this mitzvah from the Torah was revolutionary, because we still have this in these days. All the laws and regulations whenever we build something. You know, I know this. I got a little bit more familiar with the renovation of the synagogue, that everything had to be up to code. Everything has to be up to code. And it's exactly this concept. When you bring a construction up to code, implies that everything follows the highest level of safety. Bah. Sometimes it's not the highest, but it's good enough. Okay? I realize that there are things that it could be better, but the code at least takes into consideration most of the things that can go wrong. And if you wanna be up to code, you have to foresee all these problems that you may have, right? For example, if you build stairs, you need a handrail and stuff like that. So this thing that we read here in the Torah is something that we have to analyze, and from here we have to apply, analogy to see how this could be transferred to other dangerous situations, and how we are liable for what happened if we don't take the precautions to prevent all these kind of damages. It's on us. It's a very, very, very important thing. And I don't know, tell me in the chat if you want, if you experience how society was evolving on this. Because I remember when I was a little kid, many of the things that they are not up to code now used to be up to code back then. Either materials that they were used or other things that in these days it will be unthinkable because they are considered very dangerous, but they were okay back in the day. So let me know in the chat if you know what I'm talking about. So let's continue with this. Now, why we do this? And listen to this, because this text also is going to introduce to us to a very interesting principle. It says, we learn a Baraita. A Baraita is a piece of oral law that it was not published independently, like the Mishnah, but is used during the Gemara when they discuss other Mishnayot. So it is a piece of oral law. Brenda, you said asbestos. Yeah, for example, asbestos, they were okay. Back in the day, we're up to code because it was very important to insulate buildings so you could keep the heat inside, but then they discovered that asbestos were harmful. So yeah, that's a perfect example how asbestos, Sherizedek was full of it. Yeah, I know. It's we had a big expense to do that. Yeah. And electric outlets. Yeah, the breakers. I remember the breakers were different. I don't know how you call it in English, but they think that you have to unscrew to change you had that little filament inside. And now they're breakers. That they were. It wasn't like that back in the day. So, we learn a Baraita. A person should not throw stones from his property into public grounds. It happened that a person was throwing stones from his property into public domain. A pious man passed by and said to him, "Foolish one, why are you throwing stones from property that does not belong to you onto ground that does belong to you?" The man laughed at him. As time went by, he had to sell his field, and when he was walking on those public grounds, stumbled over his own stones. He then exclaimed, "That pious man was right when he said to me, 'Why are you throwing stone from grounds that does not belong to you into grounds that does belong to you?'" So, yeah, it's a very interesting concept, and how this text could be also extrapolated into the world where we live into the environment. We feel every time that we pollute the earth, we don't think that is an issue. And we don't realize that is what really belongs to us. Private property, what you think is private property could be private property today, and tomorrow you are selling it, you move it somewhere else. But what you put into the environment is yours forever, because you have to live there all the time. Doesn't matter when you leave, doesn't matter when you move, it's still the same world. So we have to be very careful what we do to the world. So you see, the Talmud was already thinking that way. If you think that you are taking your stone and putting it into somebody else's property, talking about public property, you don't realize that public property is yours as well. So we have to be very careful what we do. It's let's see. Electric outlets, who said that? Fuses, that's the word. Thank you. And Eddie Muniz, welcome to the class. Asgahat Gevul. I don't know what you're saying. I don't know, Eddie. I don't know. If you can rephrase your question, I'll try to answer. Okay. So, yeah, let me know what you think about this concept, guys. About how the Torah is already, again, the Torah starts with the commandment of being careful with the cisterns that we dig, right? And the consequences that could have to others. From there, he's taking it all the way into that we have to be very careful to the dangers or to what we put into the world in general and how that could be dangerous to others and to ourselves. Because the cistern in public field is just one example. How we think that by making that cistern so we can have water, now put other people in danger. So the Torah is warning us how dangerous that is. So, yeah. Now, it's interesting that listen to this story, because now the rabbis also take the story of the cistern as a metaphor. Listen to this. Hopefully you will understand the metaphor. This is a story that happened to Rabbi Anibal Lamb. And he said, when I was a youngish yeshiva student during the holy month of Elul, which is the prelude to Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur, I was wearing a rather sour look on my face. One of the rabbis approached me and asked me what the problem was. I uttered, Elul, Rabbi, Elul, thinking that would be enough of a justification for the extra serious face. Remember, high holidays is coming. You're crazy. So many things to do. So he had a sour face. So the rabbi told me, Elul is what's going on your heart. That's the private domain. Your face, though, is public domain. So Pirkei Avot, the Mishnah declares, greet every man with a pleasant and interested face. So this is a very interesting thing about how they take the concept of a cistern in public property as a metaphor to our face. Listen to this. Rabbi Israel Salanter said it beautifully. He says, one's face has the status of a Reshut Harabim, public domain. And it's true. When you walk in the street, everybody can see your face. Everybody can see your face, like it or not, unless you cover it. You put something on it, but that's not the way we do it. If one walks around with a sour look on his face is a bore, Bereshut Harabim, a pit in a public area. And he's responsible for any damage caused to someone who falls or hurt himself on account of his pit. So in other words, this is beautiful. This is beautiful. This rabbi goes all the way from the cistern that at the end became a deadly trap for an animal or for another person, took it as a metaphor and make him reflect on how the way we go through life, and how that affects other people's lives. It's a very interesting thing. Yeah. So, yeah. But we sometimes we don't understand how, smiling at other people can make the other person feel better. And the other thing is also true, that if you are always sad and you look angry and bitter, you can ruin somebody else's day. It's true. Reflect about that and tell me if it never happens to you, right? It's very interesting. It's another way of how we are all responsible for each other, and sometimes it starts from a simple smile when you look at somebody else. That's all. That's all it takes. And sometimes it's not easy, especially if we go through some difficulties. But you will see how this smile is a two-way path. The more we smile to other people will smile to us. It's good. It's a good thing. It's a good thing. I want to share with you another story here from this week's Parsha. You see, it's wonderful. This Parsha is amazing, and I wish I would have time to go one by one with all these commandments that we have. This one says, if you see the donkey of someone you hate and you feel like refraining from assisting him, you must nevertheless help him. It's yeah. This is amazing, and it's also talking about our relationship to animals, right? Because let's start from the beginning. If you see the donkey of someone you hate, right, and then let's say that the donkey is suffering, the donkey fell in the cistern or something, and now the donkey is suffering, or maybe it's you found the donkey trapped or is under a heavy load, and you know that donkey belongs to a person that you hate. So what would you do? Right? Some people will say, well, I won't do anything because I hate the person. And the first thing that the Torah is asking you here is because you hate another human being, what guilt is in the poor donkey that you won't help that animal? So we see here that helping animals is independent for whatever feeling we may have to their masters or to their owners. And it's a very interesting thing because it's talking about our obligations towards animals to relieve them from pain and to help them if we see an animal under a difficult situation, if we can help. So in this case, it's something very interesting that regardless of what we feel for other people, we have the obligation to step in and help the animals. Yeah. Yeah. So it is interesting. Now, I wanted to share with you a few comments about this. And it says, you're warned not to remain inactive when faced with the animal's distress, even if its owner is your enemy. This interpretation is also hinted at in Rashi's commentary of Deuteronomy 13:9, where he emphasizes that one's enemy is exempt from the commandment to love your fellow man as yourself. Right? So, what it's saying is, in some cases, you may not be obligated to fulfill the commandments, love your neighbor as yourself, if there is, of course, Rashi will give specific rules for that exception, but that never includes the animals. Never includes the animal. So you may in very specific cases not be obligated to love your neighbor as yourself. But even in those cases, we are still obligated to take care of your neighbor, the one you hate, your neighbor's animals, because they are independent beings. We have an obligation to take care of them. Brenda, you said here, hate is such a strong word. We may hate what someone does without hating a person. Yeah, I understand that. But there are cases where the rabbi seems to imply that you may be entitled to hate somebody. Hey, after all, the word exists, right? Maybe we don't understand the full extent of it, but yeah, even if you said you hate what the person does, but if the person does that every single time, all day, hating the things and hating the person, there may not be a difference. But what I'm trying to say here, and this is incredible, and this is so, it's so important that the Torah tackles this, and the Torah gives us advice, so we don't have to second guess, is how the Torah takes into consideration the animal's feelings. Because when you're talking that an animal is suffering, you're talking about the animal feelings. And it's important for us if we can help. If you know something, and it's our responsibility for animals as well. Yeah. And I would say, I know of people that they can't stand their neighbor, but they love their dog, right? But they cannot stand the neighbor because they are two different beings. Two different beings. Lori, you said some people are destroyers. They have ugly, malicious characters. Yeah, yeah. Uh, Shelley Chochinov. Occasionally, it may take a superhuman effort to find a redeeming aspect in someone's behavior. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Sometimes you will be able to find something positive about the person. Sometimes you won't. You won't. But nevertheless, the animal is the animal and it's not had nothing to do with your neighbor. Okay. Another one. Another one. Now, it says, then he took the record of the covenant and read it out loud to the people. And they said, all that God has spoken, we will faithfully do. This is one of the most famous phrases in the Torah. Naaseh venishma. Have you ever heard that one? Naaseh venishma. We will hear and we will do. I know the translation here is we will faithfully do. That's not exactly what it says in Hebrew. Naaseh, we will do. Venishma, lishmoa, to hear, and we will hear. And it's interesting, the first thing that I want to mention here is the order of the words. I remember studying this long time ago in Hebrew day school in Argentina. I remember a teacher who taught us. I said, kids, look at the order of the words. Why do you think it says naaseh, we will do, and we will hear, right? How can you do something if you haven't heard it first? Our teacher, she was saying, it should said nishma v'naaseh. First we will hear what we have to do, and then we will do it. So why do you think the Torah says first naaseh, first we will do, and then we will hear? And again, don't get me wrong, because I want to point out the same thing that I said at the beginning. It said naaseh ve nishma, and remember, means that both conditions has to be true. You have to do and you have to hear. We are talking just about the order in which this is presented. Okay, Lori said, we will remember. Okay, but it's interesting. But how can you remember something you haven't heard? Any guesses? Let me know. This is fascinating. Fascinating question. I want to know what you think about this. Brenda, you said perhaps we will learn if we make my way, maybe you want to say? Mistakes. Very well, if we make mistakes. Oh, okay. So, okay. Interesting. So you do it even if you don't know it yet. Holly, you said we will do it because it's God's will, and then we will hear and understand it. Very good. That's what I learned at school, Holly. That's what our teacher taught us. It means, we know the mitzvot. We know what we're supposed to do, even if we don't understand it. In this sense, in the context of the verse, not understanding it means that you haven't heard all the explanations about it. Because you didn't have the opportunity, maybe you didn't understand it. There are many reasons why you haven't heard all the explanations. So there are many things that we do in Judaism that we don't fully understand. Many mitzvot, even the rabbis say that they are chukim, that they don't really have a logical explanation. Nothing that can be said about it will satisfy your need to know why you're doing it. You won't get that. And nevertheless, we have to do it. So what it says here is, first you will do. All the mitzvot we will do. And then, while we are doing it, we are going to try Venishma. We're going to try to hear all the explanations about it. because that takes, how to do something, how to fulfill a mitzvah, takes 1 minute explanation. Why we fulfill that mitzvah is sometimes is a life journey. It's a life journey. I don't know if it ever happens to you. That even sometimes the understanding of a commandment will change with time. But it doesn't mean that we won't do it today because you don't fully understand it. Or maybe I won't do it because maybe tomorrow I will have a different perception of that. So that's why the expression, that's why what they said, a 7 Ishma, we will do, even if we don't understand it. It was huge. It was a huge leap of faith of the Jewish people regarding all the commandments that God had for them. Yeah. So I want to share some comments about this, right? Of course, Soloveitchik, great thinker. He said, why? And another thing about this, that maybe you haven't thought about this detail. Why did each individual respond in the plural? A 7 Ishma. We will do and we will hear. More correctly, each person should have said, a 7 Ishma. I will do and I will hear. How could they speak for everybody else? Right? I can speak for myself. I cannot speak for you. Right? It's my observance, not your observance. It's my journey, not your journey. Because my journey may be different from your journey. So how could they say in plural, na 7 Ishma? And then Rabbi Soloveitchik answers, because everyone made 2 commitments that day. One commitment was to personally observe the Torah. That is individual. The second commitment was to take responsibility over his friend to ensure that he will also keep the Torah faithfully. So in other words, it's not only about me. I will also be sure that I can encourage you, uplift you, so you will also fulfill the commandments even if you don't fully understand them. And I feel that is a big part of what we do here at Shul, that we're trying to teach people, so people will learn about the mitzvot, but then to understand that you will have the rest of your life to understand all the details. You don't need to know all the details before you start fulfilling the commandments. You don't need to understand every single intricacy about tefillin, to put on the tefillin in your arm and in your head every morning. Or why do you put the mezuzah in the door? You know how many explanations are about that? You don't need to know them all right away at the time that you affix a mezuzah to your door. That will come with time. But the same comes for kashrut, that many people don't eat kosher because they don't fully understand it. So now 7 Ishma is, I will do it even if I don't fully understand it today. Because you may understand that in the future. In the future, it makes sense to you. And they said, oh, and I went through 20 years of my life without doing it. And I cannot go back in time. So, but it's important for all of us to encourage each other to be sure about this. Okay? And let's continue. So, Rebbe said that when the Jewish people stood before Mount Sinai together and accepted the sovereignty of Hashem with joy and with one heart, they also became guarantors for each other. And this is huge, that we are responsible for each other. And this is part of the unity of the Jewish people, right? Listen to this. Our sages have taught that the ear is the most notable of all limbs of the body. If one were to blind another person, he will have to pay his victims for his eyesight. In contrast, one who deafens another person must pay for his victim's entire worth. Why? Because the ear is the body part through which one hears rebuke. The Midrash states, if a person falls off a roof and breaks all of his bones, he will need a cast for his entire body. However, if a person sins with all of his limbs, he needs only a healthy ear in order to be cured. as the verse says, incline your ear and come to me, listen, and your soul will be rejuvenated. So this thing is talking again. It's a commentary about the Nase Venishma. We will hear. Okay, this part of we will hear implies that hear from who? From who? From, sometimes it could be from a rabbi, sometimes it could be for a friend, from a teacher. But it's important. And that's so important, the concept of listening. The words of Torah for us to be encouraged to change the way we do things. So it's an extremely important part. And we do now, but it's important as we go also to hear what we are doing. Now, let's talk a little bit before the end of the class about the shekel that I told you about this before. Because we have the obligation to give 3 half shekels during the month of Adar. Okay? The month of Adar is going to be next, I believe, Tuesday and Wednesday. Next Tuesday and Wednesday, 2 days of Rosh Chodesh. Okay, 2 days of Rosh Chodesh Adar, and from there all the way to the end of the month, we have to donate the equivalent of 3 half shekels to the synagogue. Okay, through the synagogue. So it goes like this. The Torah says, and we are going to read this weekend, the second scroll. So we have 2 scrolls for Torah this Shabbat. When you take a census of the Israelites according to their army enrollment, each shall pay Adonai a ransom for himself from being enrolled, that no plague may come upon them through their being enrolled. And this is also, you probably know the tradition that when we come to Minyan, we don't count people by pointing. Because, when you count, and it says here, if you point at somebody, when you count them, you are bringing a plague upon them. Crazy, right? Crazy. So, this is what who is entered in the record shall pay. A half shekel by the sanctuary weight. Okay? So shekel means weight. Again, as mentioned before, peso, the weight. So a half shekel by the sanctuary weight, 20 gerahs to the shekel, a half shekel as an offering to Adonai. Okay? Half shekel. So, I wanted to mention that the Talmud mentioned here, right? It is forbidden to count the Jewish people even for the purpose of performing a mitzvah, since doing so could make them subject to ayin hara, evil eye, which may reduce their numbers. Now, Brenda, you said count shoes. Yeah, Shelley, you said we used to say not 1, no 2, etc. Yes, but the Shulchan Aruch brings a better method, and this is the most common one. Listen to this. How do we count? When there is a need to see if there are 10 men present for a minyan, the custom is to count them by the words of the verse, Hoshia et Amecha. And I put it there in yellow for you. Hoshia et Amecha uvarech et nachalatecha urem venasem ad olam. 10 words. 10 words. Deliver and bless your very own people, tend them and sustain them forever. So we use a verse that has 10 words that also serves to counteract any kind of evil eye that we may have brought inadvertently to the people when we count them. Okay, so this is the most common way to count people for a minyan. Instead of counting 1, 2, 3, you go Shiet, Amecha, Uvarech, Nachalatecha, Urem, Venasem, Adolam, just in case. Okay? Just in case. Now, listen to this because this is what I want to mention. Let's go back to the shekel now, okay? What is the amount one should donate in commemoration of the half shekel in these days? The actual half shekel coin amounted to the weight of 9 grams of pure silver. Okay? Follow me? However, if one's financial situation does not allow one to donate this amount, donate any coin in commemoration of the half shekel is sufficient. And that is what somebody put in the chat before, right? Just to donate a coin. But that is if you cannot afford to donate the half shekel. Now, we donate 3 half shekels because in the Torah portion that we are going to read this Saturday, the word teruma, which is the donation, appeared 3 times. So that's why we donate 3 half shekels. Okay? Now, women must also donate money in commemoration of the half shekel, and it is proper for one to donate this amount for one's small children as well. Some have the custom to donate this amount for their unborn babies as well. Okay? So, half shekel is 9 grams of pure silver. Okay? Now, I hope you can follow this. The way to calculate this sum is as follows. A troy ounce of silver consists of 31.1 grams. Okay? Thus, the price of 1 troy ounce of silver was $78 on February 5th. That's when I did the calculation of this, when I put the class together. Now, that must be divided by 31.1, right? And that will give you the price of 1 gram of silver. And then multiplied by 9 in order to find the updated price for 9 grams of silver, which is the value of actual half shekel coin, which is 22.57 US or Canadian 30.88 February 5th. Okay? That is half shekel. But remember, I told you that you have to donate that 3 times. So, in other words, in Canada, will be about $90, the donation for, but that is, Shelley, that is a US dollar. So you have to make it in Canadian for us. And then multiplied by 3, and thus the donation has to be donated to the synagogue during the month of Adar. That if you want to fulfill the mitzvah to the highest standard. But as I mentioned before, if you cannot do that, you can donate 3 coins and that will be fine as well. This is the highest standard on how to fulfill the mitzvah of the half shekel. Okay, and it has to be done during the month of Adar. Most people will do it before Purim. Now, talking about Purim, because I'm not going to be seeing you guys before the holiday, I wanted to remind you, right, that Purim is celebrated the 14th day of Adar, and that is the Monday evening, March 2nd, 2026. And remember, Monday is a fast day. It's called the Fast of Esther. And then we read the Megillah at night, and then we have a feast during the day, which is the opposite of what we do for the other holidays, where we have the feast first, and then we have the holiday the next day. On Purim, we don't have the big feast on the eve. We eat on the eve, but the big feast is at the end of the day of Purim. Most people will eat all day, actually. It's like a big, long feast for Purim. Now, we learn all this, and this is the last text for us, from the book of Esther, that is giving us hints on how we celebrate the festival. So I will say, Mordecai recorded these events and sent letters to all the Jews in all the provinces of King Ahasuerus, both near and far, instructing them to observe the 14th day of the month of Adar and the 15th day. The extra day was just for Shushan, for the city where they were living. Okay, but for us, it's just the 14th day of Adar. Every year to commemorate the days on which the Jews obtained rest from their enemies, and the month which for them was turned from sorrow into gladness and from mourning into holiday, they were to make them days of celebrating and rejoicing. That's why we eat and we drink on Purim. Number 2, sending portion to each other. We call this Mishloach Manot. This is the little baggies that we give to each other. I don't know if you ever done it or ever received one, that people put the hamantashes and some other treats inside. It's coming from the book of Esther. And also giving gift to the poor. That means that we give money to poor people. The day of Purim. You can go out to the street, look for a beggar, and you give them money during the day of Purim. And those are basically the things we do. The rejoicing, the Mishloach Matanot La'Evyonim. We also read the Megillah. Okay? We read the book of Esther, where we remember all these things. Okay, thank you everyone for being here with me. Remember, no class for the next 2 weeks, and I will see you after that, where we are going to start actually our countdown for Passover. Can you believe it? Countdown to Passover. So thank you everyone for tuning in. And remember, if you missed anything, you can catch it up again tonight at 8 Central p.m. And please give it the thumbs up. And if you haven't done so, please subscribe to our channel so you will be notified every time we go live and every time we upload something to our channels. Thank you so much. Have a wonderful rest of your day. Be blessed. Hope to see you soon. Bye, everyone.